Some love stories are remembered for the red carpets, but these couples faced something deeper. Race fame, family pressure, and a public that never stopped judging. From Hollywood stages to royal headlines, their relationships changed how America looked at love. Welcome to Hollywood Legends Remembered. Subscribe now, and let's begin. Iman and David Bowie. Iman was a Somali-born supermodel and businesswoman. David Bowie was one of the most influential musicians of his generation. They met in Los Angeles in 1990 through a mutual friend. Bowie was drawn to her almost immediately, but Iman was more cautious. She had already lived around fame and knew the difference between attention and real commitment. Their relationship moved quietly. No loud public campaign, no constant interviews. In 1992, they married in a private ceremony in Switzerland, then celebrated later in Florence, Italy. Their daughter, Alexis Zara Jones, was born in 2000. After that, Bowie became even more protective of home life. He still made music, but he also stepped back from the non-stop public image that had followed him for decades. Could you keep love private when both names are known around the world? Iman and Bowie managed to do that for nearly 24 years until his death in 2016. Their marriage still feels memorable because it was not performed for the public. It was protected. Grace Hightower and Robert De Niro. Grace Hightower grew up in Mississippi and later worked in London. Robert De Niro was already one of America's most respected actors, known for The Godfather Part 2, Taxi Driver, and Raging Bull. They met in 1987 at Mr. Chow, where Grace was working. It was not a neat Hollywood setup. He was a movie legend. She was living her own life far from the kind of fame that followed him everywhere. After years together, they married in 1997. Their son Elliot was born in 1998. But the marriage quickly hit trouble. De Niro filed for divorce in 1999, and the custody fight became public. Would most couples come back from that? Somehow they did for a while. The divorce was not finalized, and in 2004, they renewed their vows. Their daughter Helen Grace was born via surrogate in 2011. By 2018, Grace and Robert had separated again. Their story was not smooth, and it was not a fairy tale. It was a long relationship with love pressure, children, second chances, and an ending that came after many years. Mellody Hobson and George Lucas. Mellody Hobson is a respected investor and business leader known for her work at Ariel Investments. George Lucas is the filmmaker who created Star Wars and Indiana Jones, two stories that changed modern cinema. They were not a typical Hollywood match. Mellody came from finance boardrooms and long-term strategy. George came from filmmaking imagination and a career built around worlds that did not exist until he created them. Their relationship stayed mostly private. After years together, they married on June 22, 2013 at Skywalker Ranch in California. Later that year, they welcomed their daughter Everest Hobson Lucas through a surrogate. Wouldn't it be interesting when two powerful people do not need the spotlight to prove anything? That is what makes this couple different. They rarely turn their marriage into a public performance. Instead, much of their shared energy has gone into family and philanthropy, including the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art in Los Angeles. By 2026, Mellody and George still seemed focused on the same idea: use what they built to leave something useful behind. Seal and Heidi Klum. When Heidi Klum was expecting her daughter Lenny in 2004, Seal came into her life at a moment that was already complicated. He was known around the world for Kiss from a Rose, while Heidi had become one of the most recognizable models on television and fashion runways. What made people notice was not only the romance. It was how quickly Seal stepped into family life. He stood by Heidi during the pregnancy and later became Lenny's adoptive father in 2009. In May 2005, Seal and Heidi married on a beach in Mexico. 3 more children followed: Henry, Johan, and Lou. For a while, they looked like a rare Hollywood family that was loud, joyful, and fully together. But can a marriage still be meaningful if it does not last forever? In 2012, they announced their separation, and the divorce was finalized in 2014. Their ending did not erase what came before. Seal and Heidi built a family, shared real years together, and gave their children a story bigger than headlines. Tara Wilson and Chris Noth. Tara Wilson came from Canada with a background in acting and pageants. Chris Noth was already a familiar face to American viewers through Law and Order and Sex and the City. Their story did not start at a premiere or a Hollywood party. It started at the Cutting Room, a New York bar Chris co-owned where Tara was working. That kind of beginning feels more ordinary than glamorous, and maybe that is why it stood out. They were together for years before marriage. Their first son, Orion Christopher, was born in 2008. In 2012, Tara and Chris married in Maui, far from the noise of New York and Hollywood. Their second son, Keats, arrived in 2020. What happens when a private family is suddenly pulled into public trouble? That became part of their story in 2021, when allegations against Chris Noth brought intense attention. Tara did not turn the situation into a public drama. She stayed mostly silent. So this is not a clean Hollywood romance. It is a complicated family story with love children, privacy pressure, and a lot left unsaid. Chaz Ebert and Roger Ebert. Chaz Ebert worked as an attorney before becoming closely tied to Roger Ebert's public and professional life. Roger was the film critic millions of Americans knew from print television and his famous thumbs-up reviews. They married in 1992 when Roger had never been married before. Their relationship was not built around Hollywood glamour. It was built around Chicago work movies, conversation, and a shared life that later became much harder than either of them expected. In 2002, Roger was diagnosed with cancer. After major surgery in 2006, he lost the ability to speak and eat normally. Chaz did not step away. She helped him continue writing, attending events, and staying connected to the film world. What does love look like when one person has to speak for the other? After Roger died in 2013, Chaz kept his work alive through RogerEbert.com Ebertfest and public projects connected to film and empathy. Their marriage is remembered not because it was flashy, but because it held up under pain, illness, and silence. Serena Williams and Alexis Ohanian. Serena Williams is one of the greatest tennis players in history. Alexis Ohanian is the tech entrepreneur who co-founded Reddit. Their first meeting happened in Rome in 2015, and it was not some carefully planned celebrity setup. They were at the same hotel, started talking, and somehow two very different worlds crossed tennis at the highest level in Silicon Valley business. By 2016, they were engaged. A year later, they married in New Orleans, just months after welcoming their first daughter, Olympia. Their second daughter, Adira River, arrived in 2023. What makes their story stand out is not just fame. Alexis has often shown up as more than Serena's husband. In 2020, he stepped down from Reddit's board and asked to be replaced by a black candidate, saying his decision was partly for the future his daughter would grow up in. Would you call that love or real partnership? By 2026, Serena and Alexis were still building a family in public view. But their strongest moments often looked simple. A father in the stands, a mother still powerful, and two daughters watching it all. Zoe Kravitz and Carl Glusman. Before the Paris wedding, before the famous guest list, Zoe Kravitz and Carl Glusman were just two actors trying to keep a relationship mostly to themselves. Zoe came from a very public family with Lenny Kravitz and Lisa Bonet as her parents. Carl worked more quietly, mostly in film roles outside the biggest Hollywood spotlight. They began dating in 2016. For a while, they seemed to do things their own way, private, low-key, and not eager to explain much to the press. In 2018, Zoe revealed they were engaged almost as if it was something she had simply been living with, not something she needed to announce loudly. Their wedding took place in June 2019 at Lenny Kravitz's home in Paris. It looked beautiful from the outside. But does a beautiful wedding always mean a lasting marriage? By the end of 2020, Zoe had filed for divorce. It was finalized in 2021. There was no long public fight, just a quiet ending to a relationship that seemed real even if it did not last. Naomi Campbell and Vladislav Doronin. Naomi Campbell had already ruled fashion for decades. Vladislav Doronin was a wealthy property developer with a life built around business architecture and private luxury. They were first linked in 2008 after meeting at the Cannes Film Festival. From the outside, the relationship looked expensive and untouchable. Yachts, international travel, private homes, and parties where cameras could only catch small pieces of the story. But that kind of glamour does not tell you much about what happens behind closed doors. For about 5 years, Naomi and Vladislav were one of the most watched couples in fashion and billionaire circles. They were seen together in places like Cannes, Venice, and other luxury destinations, but they rarely explained the relationship in public. Can a love story stay real when everything around it looks like a performance? By 2013, they had separated. Years later, the ending grew colder when both sides became involved in legal disputes over personal property. Their story was never a simple fairy tale. It was a chapter of power, beauty, wealth, privacy, and a breakup that proved glamour does not always mean peace. Taye Diggs and Idina Menzel. Rent was not just another Broadway musical. When it opened in the mid-1990s, it brought younger audiences into the theater with a story about love, illness, identity, money, race, and people trying to survive in New York. That was where Taye Diggs and Idina Menzel first crossed paths. Both were part of the original Broadway production, and that stage became the beginning of their careers and their relationship. Taye later moved into film and television, while Idina became one of Broadway's strongest voices, especially after Wicked and Frozen. But before all that, they were two performers coming up together working long nights in the same show. They married in 2003. Their son, Walker Nathaniel Diggs, was born on September 2nd, 2009. A few years later, the marriage began to break apart, and in 2013, they announced their separation. Their divorce was finalized in 2014. Content reference, Oesite 0, Index 0. What made their story more complicated was not only fame. Idina later said the interracial part of their marriage brought pressure, especially as Taye became more visible in black media, and both careers grew. Content reference, Oesite, Index. Would most couples know how to handle that kind of pressure? Today, their most important connection is their son. Both have spoken about co-parenting and keeping Walker's well-being first. So their story is not just about a Broadway romance that ended. It is about two people who met inside a landmark musical, built a family, and then had to find a different way to stay connected. Keisha Chambers and Justin Chambers. Before Grey's Anatomy made Justin Chambers famous, his life was tied to modeling. That was how he met Keisha Chambers. He was working as a model, and she was working in the modeling business behind the scenes. Their relationship started before television fame changed everything. They married in 1993, years before Justin became Dr. Alex Karev, one of the original faces of Grey's Anatomy. What makes their story different is how little they tried to sell it. Keisha rarely chased attention, and the couple raised 5 children while keeping most of their home life away from Hollywood noise. Their children are Isabella twins, Maya and Kyla Eva, and Jackson. Could a marriage last longer when it is not treated like a public performance? In 2020, Justin surprised fans by leaving Grey's Anatomy after 15 years. His reason was not scandalous. He said he wanted to diversify his acting roles and focus more on life, family, love, and friendship. That line says a lot about where his priorities had shifted. Keisha and Justin's marriage has lasted because it was built mostly out of sight. Alfonso Ribeiro and Angela Unkrich. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air made Alfonso Ribeiro part of American TV history. Carlton Banks was funny, polished, and unforgettable, but Alfonso's real love story did not begin on a sitcom set. Angela Unkrich came from Iowa, far away from that Hollywood image. When she met Alfonso at the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills, she did not even recognize him at first. She also was not interested in dating someone from entertainment, which made the beginning less smooth than people might expect. Alfonso had to make the first move more than once. That small detail says a lot. Fame did not do the work for him. Wouldn't that make the story feel more real? They married on October 13, 2012, and built a family that mixed Hollywood life with something more ordinary. Their children. A.J. Anders and Ava grew up alongside Alfonso's oldest daughter, Sienna, from his previous marriage. By 2025, they had celebrated 13 years of marriage. What stands out is not scandal or red carpet drama. It is the opposite, a man known for a famous TV character and a woman who first saw past the fame before she saw the person. Camila Alves and Matthew McConaughey. Long before Matthew McConaughey became an Oscar winner, he was already known for that Texas charm, easy smile, slow voice, and roles that made him one of Hollywood's most familiar leading men. Camila Alves came from Brazil, worked her way up as a model and designer, and built a life far from where she started. They met in Los Angeles in 2006. Matthew noticed her first, but Camila was not simply swept away by a movie star. She had her own direction, her own background, and her own standards. Their relationship grew over time, not overnight. They welcomed their son Levi in 2008, daughter Vida in 2010, and married at their home in Austin, Texas in 2012. Their youngest son, Livingston, was born later that same year. Would fame matter less if the family life behind it felt real? What makes their story fit this title is not just that they come from different cultures. It is how they built a home around both of them. Brazilian roots, Texas values, children, faith, and a quieter life away from the constant Hollywood chase. Quincy Jones and Peggy Lipton. The Mod Squad made Peggy Lipton one of the most recognizable TV faces of the late 1960s. Quincy Jones was already shaping American music, moving between jazz film scores and the kind of production work that would later make him a legend. They married in 1974, only a few years after interracial marriage had become legally protected across the United States. That context matters. Their relationship was not just happening in private. It existed in a country still learning how to look at couples who did not fit old expectations. Peggy stepped back from acting for years while raising their daughters Kidada and Rashida. Quincy's career kept expanding, and that kind of life brought pressure into the marriage. Could love stay simple when the world around it was changing that fast? They separated in the late 1980s and divorced in 1990. But the story did not end with bitterness. Their daughters later built creative lives of their own, and Rashida became one of the most familiar faces of the next generation. Looking back, Quincy and Peggy's marriage feels like a chapter of family race fame, and two daughters who carried pieces of both worlds forward. FKA Twigs and Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson was the British actor many fans knew from Twilight. FKA Twigs was a British singer-dancer and visual artist with a style that never felt ordinary. They began dating around 2014 at a time when Pattinson was trying to move beyond the image that made him famous, while Twigs was building her name through music performance and bold visuals. On paper, they were both artists. But the public did not treat the relationship that simply. A lot of attention turned ugly. Years later, FKA Twigs spoke about the racist abuse she received from some fans during that period. That detail matters because this was not just another celebrity romance being watched by tabloids. Can you imagine being attacked just because of who you loved? The couple became engaged, but by 2017 the relationship had ended. There was no long public fight, no dramatic media war, just a quiet ending after years of pressure. Their story belongs here because it shows the harder side of public love. Sometimes the couple is not the problem. The problem is the world staring at them. Jordan Peele and Chelsea Peretti. Key and Peele helped turn Jordan Peele into one of the sharpest comedy voices on television. Brooklyn Nine-Nine gave Chelsea Peretti a different kind of spotlight where her strange, dry timing made Gina Linetti impossible to forget. Their relationship started in a very modern way online. Around 2013, they connected through Twitter, not at a gala or on a movie set. That fits them. Their humor has always felt a little sideways, and their love story began the same way. They got engaged in 2015, then quietly eloped in 2016. No huge celebrity wedding, no glossy magazine spread. Chelsea later joked that their dog was the only witness. Wouldn't that feel more honest than a wedding built for cameras? In 2017, they welcomed their son Beaumont Gino Peele. Since then, they have kept him mostly out of public view. Jordan went on to direct Get Out Us and Nope, while Chelsea continued writing and performing in her own lane. Their interracial marriage is not treated like a brand. It just exists private and steady between two people who seem more interested in making each other laugh than proving anything to strangers. Tamara Mowry Housley and Adam Housley. For many Americans who grew up in the 1990s, Sister Sister was comfort television. Tamara Mowry became familiar as one half of the twin sister duo that made the show so warm and easy to watch. Adam Housley came from a different public world. He worked as a journalist, spent years covering news, and had deep roots in Napa Valley. Their paths crossed through Pepperdine after a professor helped introduce them. They married on May 15th, 2011 in Napa Valley. But their story was never just about a TV actress marrying a journalist. Tamara, who comes from a mixed-race family herself, had to hear ugly comments about choosing a white husband. That part of the story is uncomfortable but important. Would most couples know how to handle that kind of judgment without letting it enter the home? Tamara later spoke openly about the pain of those remarks while also saying that marriage requires learning, listening, and patience. Together, she and Adam raised 2 children, Aiden and Araya, while keeping much of their family life grounded outside the usual Hollywood circle. Their relationship belongs in this story because it shows the private weight behind a public marriage. The hardest pressure did not always come from inside the couple. Sometimes it came from everyone watching. Terry Crews and Rebecca King Crews. Brooklyn Nine-Nine gave Terry Crews one of his most loved TV roles, but his real life with Rebecca King Crews began long before that fame. Before the red carpets, hosting jobs, and movie roles, they were a young couple trying to build a marriage. Rebecca was not just Terry Crews' wife. She had her own creative background in music and theater, and she stood beside him through years when his career moved from football to Hollywood. They married on July 29, 1989, and raised 5 children, Naomi, Azriel, Tara Winfrey, and Isaiah. But their marriage was never presented as perfect. Terry later admitted that around the 20-year mark, the relationship nearly ended because of his infidelity and addiction struggles. How many couples would be willing to tell that part of the story out loud? What makes this story deeper is that Rebecca did not disappear behind his public image. In Stronger Together, both of them spoke about the damage, the therapy, the rebuilding, and the decision to stay honest. Their marriage belongs in this list because it was shaped by race, faith, fame, mistakes, and repair. It was not clean or easy. That is exactly why it feels real. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Suits made Meghan Markle familiar to American viewers before she ever became part of the British royal family. Prince Harry had grown up in front of the world first as Diana's younger son, then as a soldier charity founder and one of the most watched men in Britain. Their relationship became public in 2016, and almost immediately the attention turned harsh. This was not just a Hollywood romance meeting royal tradition. It was an American biracial actress entering one of the oldest institutions in the world. They married on May 19, 2018 at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. The ceremony looked grand, but the story behind it soon became heavier. Meghan later spoke about the pressure she felt inside royal life, and the couple said there had been concerns within the family about how dark their first child's skin might be. How many marriages could stay calm under that kind of spotlight? Their son Archie was born in 2019, and their daughter Lilibet was born in 2021. By then, Harry and Meghan had already stepped back from senior royal duties and moved toward a different life in North America. Their story belongs here because it is not just about love. It is about race, class, media pressure, family duty, and the cost of choosing each other when the whole world has an opinion.